In this video, I'm going to give all you coaches some quick tips to help you become an even better youth sport coach to your athletes. There's a lot that goes into being a youth sport coach because youth sport coaches play so many roles in the athletes' lives that they serve. I often get a ton of questions from coaches, and if you're here watching this video, maybe you have some questions as well, and I'm hoping to get as many of those answered as I can in this video. So I put together 7 quick tips that you can easily install into your coaching practice to help you become an even better youth sport coach. I'm going to give you those tips in just a second, but let's start off by giving you a free gift today for even stopping by the channel in the first place. If you have an athlete or a team of athletes that could really use a boost in their mental preparation before their next big moment, I want you to get over to trainwithperk.com/free guide. That guide contains 3 simple steps that any athlete or performer can use to help them better mentally prepare for their next big moment. Again, that's trainwithperk.com/free guide. All right, tip number 1 is create an optimal environment for your athlete. And this starts first and foremost with making sure that that environment is safe. Your number 1 job as a leader, as the leader of a group of individuals, is to make sure that they all feel safe to be who they are, and so that way they can be the best versions of themselves when it comes time to do the thing that they love to do. This, of course, means that you need to make sure that you manage the interactions between the group, and you really need to make sure that you stop any sort of bullying or other toxic behavior by the athletes on the team and how they respond to one another. You need to stop that as soon as possible. Another way you can create the optimal environment for your athlete is by having consistency and routine built into how you go about practices and the athletes kind of day to day with you. Because the fact is that young people already face so much uncertainty in their day to day. So this means building in a consistent way that you always start practice, a consistent way that you transition between the drills of the practice, and of course, are you consistently ending practice the same way? Everything that you do in the middle, the meat and potatoes of the practice, can absolutely be interchangeable, but it's really helpful, especially for young athletes, to be able to thrive in an environment that they're comfortable with, that they're familiar with. And this is where that consistency and routine comes in. Tip number 2, be predictable and consistent. That word comes up again. Fact is that these young athletes are counting on you. And so if you happen to miss a practice, or there's going to be a moment in the future of theirs that you're going to miss, let them know ahead of time. You should also be consistent in your communication. Some of your athletes have probably had a poor experience with a previous coach, and almost all of these center around some sort of communication issue. Either a lack of communication in general, or the communication isn't consistent, or it's just not clear and easy to understand. You also need to be consistent in how you respond to adverse situations, and you need to be consistent in responding to these situations in a calm and positive, and maybe even most important, especially when you're dealing with their parents, a respectful manner. The reason this is important is that the more predictable and consistent that you can be for your young athletes, the more they are going to be inclined to trust you. Coaches who don't always show up, provide inconsistent or unclear communication, or just respond differently depending on the situation, are going to find that their athletes don't trust them as much as they could. Tip number 3, take a strengths-based approach, especially with this generation of athlete that we know is already incredibly self-critical. You need to find a way to give feedback, any feedback, in a way that takes a sort of strengths-based approach, which means having them at least focus a little bit on some of the things that they do well. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't offer them areas to improve or even constructive criticism, but when you do this, I want you to take a page out of the notebook of the legendary Laker coach, Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson, whenever he gave feedback to any one of his athletes, doesn't matter if it was Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, he always led with something that he saw them do really well or a strength of theirs. And then after that, he would provide them the sort of constructive criticism or give them something to focus on to improve on next time. But then he would always end by reinforcing that thing that he saw them do really well on that play. For example, let's say you have a player, let's call that player Timmy, and Timmy makes a mistake. Now, you could, as a coach, immediately jump in and start criticizing Timmy, but I'll be honest with you, Timmy's already criticizing himself and is probably beating himself up because he knows that he made a mistake. So instead of doing that, instead of jumping in with some criticism, how about we do this? For example, Timmy, I really liked the effort that you put in on that play. The next time, though, that you find yourself in this situation, I want you to really focus on this. So insert here something very tangible, something that's 100% in their control that Timmy can focus on. And then you end with, but Timmy, I think if you do those things, you're going to be able to get the most out of all that effort that I always see you putting in. Boom, easy. Listen, I get it's not that easy. And I get that it sounds like a lot of effort to put into one simple interaction with your athlete. I can also assure you, though, that this is going to be the most productive way because you're immediately disarming the athlete from the fact that they made a mistake in the first place. They're not going to be as resistant and as defensive to you. This means that they're going to be much more receptive to what you have to say, which probably increases the odds that they're actually going to retain that information, which at least will make it somewhat likely that they won't do the same thing next time. Which, for the record, means that you as the coach are less likely to have to correct the same mistake over and over and over again. So yes, it's a little harder to put that level of effort into that interaction, but I also think it's pretty hard to try and correct the same thing over and over and over again. Choose your hard. You've gotten value from this video so far. Make sure to hit that subscribe button for me right now. Tip number 4, play. This is one of my absolute favorite tips for coaches. Get your butt out there and actually play the sport with them. Coaches forget that you're allowed to have fun and enjoy yourself too. And if you're out there on the field, the court, the pitch, whatever, did I miss one? The diamond, that's the field. I don't think I missed one, whatever. Get out there, and if you do, now all of a sudden you have an immediate opportunity to model the types of things that you want them to be able to do. It's also going to make them feel a lot more connected with you because you're out there having a good time and playing with them. Tip number 5, foster connection. One of the most powerful things that sport can teach a young person is how to build strong relationships with the people around them, especially people that they're trying to work towards a common goal with. Many coaches understand this, and so many coaches do some sort of team building, but many times this occurs at the beginning of the season. There's nothing wrong with that, but the truth is that team building is a year-long process. So as a coach, you should constantly be seeking ways to put your athletes in a position to build a stronger connection with one another. Now, there are a million team building exercises out there. If you want me to do a video on some of my favorites, I'd be happy to. Just leave me a comment below letting me know that that would be a video that you would appreciate. Tip number 6, be a constant and willing learner. Coaching is just as much a craft as anything else that you choose to pursue in your life. So being a constant learner is vital to your long-term success as a coach. There are so many resources out there like this YouTube channel that cover a whole host of topics, but there's also plenty of books from legendary coaches that talk about the ideas and philosophies that made them great coaches that you can easily learn from. Your job as the coach is to take as much information as you can in and then decide what fits you and your coaching style the best. Tip number 7 is build a strong team culture. Fact is that your team's culture is the glue that's going to hold it together through thick and thin. Now, I did an entire video on this topic because this topic of team building and building a strong team culture is a dense topic. I'll leave the link up there right above, and I'll also put it down in the description because it's a dense topic and it deserves its own video to fully work out and work through those ideas. If you enjoyed the video, hit that thumbs up button for me. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you haven't already, make sure that you go get your free copy of that 100% free guide, trainwithperk.com/free guide. It's really going to help. I'll see you next week.